The 14th of April, 2016, Atlanta. Prince walked onto the stage for what would be his final concert. The piano was waiting. The crowd was electric. Nobody knew what was about to happen. But then, mid-song, he stopped playing and said 5 words that sounded cryptic until 7 days later, when they became a message no one could ignore. The Fox Theater held its breath. 2,000 souls packed into velvet seats, the air thick with expectation. Purple light washed over the grand piano at center stage, a Steinway polished to mirror black. The stage floor gleamed like water under a single spotlight. Prince entered from stage left. No band, no dancers, just him and the piano. He wore a simple black shirt, fitted pants, and boots with a slight heel. His hair was natural, his face calm. The crowd erupted, but he didn't wave. He didn't smile. He walked to the piano like a man walking to confession. The applause swelled, then faded. He sat down, adjusted the bench, placed his hands on the keys. They were shaking, but steady. Nobody noticed the envelope in his jacket pocket. Purple, folded tight, waiting. His fingers touched the keys. A single chord filled the theater, then another slow, deliberate haunting. Sometimes it snows in April. The crowd recognized it immediately. A song about loss, about endings, about someone who left too soon. He'd written it decades ago, but tonight it felt like he was singing it for the first time. His voice cracked on the first line, not from age but from something deeper, something no one in that room could name yet. He sang the first verse without looking up. His eyes stayed on the keys, his body still, his breath visible in the stage light. Every word landed like a stone in still water, rippling out, touching everyone, leaving marks. A woman in the third row wiped her eyes. A man in the balcony leaned forward. The entire theater leaned in with him. But they weren't just listening to a song. They were witnessing something else, something he'd been carrying alone for far too long. And then, halfway through the second verse, he stopped. His hands lifted off the keys. The note hung in the air, unfinished. The room went silent, not the kind of silence that waits for applause, but the kind that holds its breath. Prince sat still, his head tilted slightly, his eyes closed. For 10 seconds, maybe 15, he didn't move. The crowd didn't either. Some unknown cough. A chair creaked, but no one spoke. Then he opened his eyes and turned toward the audience. Not to the lights, not to the stage manager in the wings. To them, to the faces in the dark. His lips parted, he took a breath, and he said it. Wait a few days before you waste your prayers. 5 words, quiet, clear. The crowd didn't know how to respond. A few people clapped, uncertain. Others sat frozen, trying to decode what he meant. Was it a lyric, a joke, a warning? It didn't sound like any of those things. It sounded like goodbye, but he didn't explain. He turned back to the piano, placed his hands on the keys, and finished the song. His voice was softer now, fragile, like glass holding water. It wasn't meant to carry. When the last note faded, the applause came, but it felt wrong, too loud, too hollow. Like clapping at a funeral. Prince stood. He bowed once. Then he walked off stage, his shoulders slightly bent, his hands in his pockets. Nobody knew it yet, but that silence would echo for years. The door to his dressing room closed behind him. The hallway was empty. His tour manager stood nearby, scrolling through his phone, waiting for the usual post, showed to brief. Prince didn't say anything. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the envelope. Purple, unmarked, sealed tight. He held it for a moment, staring at it like it weighed more than paper should. Then he handed it to the manager without a word. "What is this?" the manager asked. Prince looked at him. His eyes were calm, but there was something behind them, something that didn't want to be named. "Instructions," he said, "for after." After what? Prince didn't answer. He just nodded toward the envelope and walked back into his dressing room. The door clicked shut. The manager stood there, holding the purple envelope, feeling its weight. He didn't open it. Not then. He slipped it into his bag and went back to his phone, assuming it was just another one of Prince's cryptic gestures. The kind he'd made 100 times before, But this one was different. This one had a date on it, written in pencil on the back. The 21st of April, 2016, 7 days away. Prince left the theater alone. No security, no entourage, just him and a black SUV idling at the stage door. The driver opened the door. Prince slid into the back seat without a word. The door closed. The city blurred past the tinted windows, streetlights, late-night diners, people walking home from bars, laughing, alive. He stared out the window, his reflection faint in the glass. His hands rested on his knees, still trembling slightly from the piano keys. The driver glanced in the rearview mirror. Good show tonight. Prince didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, it was the right show. The driver nodded, unsure what that meant, and turned up the radio. A Prince song came on, Purple Rain, Live from 1985. The crowd roaring, the guitar screaming. The man in the back seat closed his eyes and let the memory wash over him. That version of himself felt like a lifetime ago. Louder, brighter, untouchable. But tonight, he was just a man driving home in the dark, carrying a truth no one else could see yet. The SUV pulled into a hotel parking lot. The driver turned off the engine. Prince opened the door, stepped out, and paused. He looked up at the sky, clear, cold, dotted with stars. He took a breath, then he walked inside. The lobby was empty except for a night clerk scrolling on her phone. She glanced up, recognized him, and froze. Prince smiled, small, tired, real, and kept walking to the elevator. As the doors closed, she whispered to herself, that was Prince. She had no idea it was also goodbye. 3 days later, the 17th of April 2016, Minneapolis. Prince walked into the Electric Fetus, a local record store he'd been visiting for decades. The owner looked up from the counter and blinked twice, like his brain couldn't process what his eyes were seeing. Hey, Prince said, simple, casual, like he was anyone else. The owner nodded, trying to act normal. Hey, what brings you in? Just looking. He moved through the aisle slowly, fingers brushing album spines, jazz, soul, funk, old vinyl he'd probably played 1,000 times. He stopped at the used section and pulled out a Miles Davis record, Kind of Blue. He studied the cover, turned it over, read the back. A teenager in a Radiohead hoodie noticed him and whispered to his friend. They pulled out their phones, but didn't approach. They just watched, like they were seeing a myth made flesh. Prince didn't notice, or maybe he did and just didn't care. He moved to the counter and placed the record down. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a CD. Homemade, no label, just a purple Sharpie scrawl across the front. The ending is just the beginning. The owner stared at it. What is this? Something I've been working on. Prince slid it across the counter. Keep it, play it when you are ready. When I am ready. Prince smiled. Not the stage smile, not the mystery smile, but something softer, sadder, you'll know. He paid cash for the Miles Davis record, picked it up, and walked toward the door. The teenager with the phone finally worked up the courage to speak. Hey, Mr. Nelson. Prince stopped, turned, looked at the kid with patient eyes. Can I just say thank you for everything? Prince nodded. You are welcome, and thank you for listening. He pushed through the door. The bell chimed. The kid stood there, frozen, feeling like he'd just witnessed something he couldn't explain. The owner picked up the purple CD. He turned it over in his hands. No track list, no date, just those words written in Prince's hand. He didn't play it that day, or the next. He put it under the counter and forgot about it until the 21st of April, when the news broke and the world stopped spinning. Then he remembered, and he played it. And he understood. Have you ever heard a goodbye disguised as a lyric? Sometimes the loudest truths are whispered in silence. The 20th of April, 2016, 11:47 p.m. Paisley Park, Chanhassen, Minnesota. The studio lights were off. The hallways were empty. The building that had held so much sound, so much life, so much chaos and beauty, it was silent now. Prince sat alone in Studio A, the same room where he'd recorded Purple Rain, Sign O, The Times, the most beautiful girl in the world. The walls were lined with gold records, Framed photos, memories frozen in glass. He'd sent everyone home hours ago. No assistants, no engineers, no friends. Just him and the hum of the building settling into night. On the console in front of him sat a notebook. Leather-bound, worn at the edges, filled with lyrics, sketches, prayers, confessions. He opened it to the last page. The ink was fresh. "If I leave before the morning, don't say I didn't warn you." He stared at the words for a long time. Then he closed the notebook and placed it on top of a stack of master tapes. Unreleased songs, alternate takes, fragments of genius no one had heard yet. He stood, stretched, felt the ache in his joints, the weight in his chest, the exhaustion that had been building for months, maybe years. He walked to the piano in the corner, a white grand, untouched. He sat down, placed his hands on the keys, and played. No song, no structure, just notes, flowing, searching, saying what words couldn't. He played for 20 minutes. Then he stopped. His hands rested on the keys, trembling slightly. He whispered into the empty room, "I did what I came to do." Then he stood, turned off the lights, and walked upstairs. The elevator doors closed behind him. The hallway was dark. His apartment door clicked shut, and Paisley Park held its breath. The date on the notebook's last page read the 21st of April, 2016. Tomorrow. The sun rose over Paisley Park. Golden light spilled through the atrium windows, painting the white walls purple. Inside, the building was still. Too still. At 9:43 a.m., the elevator doors opened on the first floor. A staff member stepped out, coffee in hand, expecting to hear music drifting from somewhere. Studio A, the soundstage, maybe the rehearsal room, but there was nothing, just silence. He walked down the hallway, called out. No answer. He knocked on the apartment door upstairs. No response. At 9:47 a.m., he opened the door. Prince was lying on the floor near the elevator. His eyes were closed. His body was still. He looked peaceful, like he'd simply decided to rest and never woke up. The staff member dropped his coffee. The cup shattered. He ran for the phone. By 10:07 a.m., paramedics arrived. By 10:31 a.m., they pronounced him dead. By noon, the news had broken across every screen, every radio station, every corner of the world. Prince Rogers, Nelson, 57 years old, gone. And suddenly, those 5 words from Atlanta made perfect sense. Wait a few days before you waste your prayers. 7 days he'd known. Or maybe he'd just felt it, the way some people feel a storm coming before the first drop of rain falls. The crowd in Atlanta hadn't been watching a concert. They'd been witnessing a prophecy. That same afternoon, the tour manager sat in a hotel room in Los Angeles, staring at his phone as the news scrolled past. His hands were shaking. His chest felt tight. Then he remembered. The envelope. He pulled his bag from the closet, dug through it, and found it purple, unmarked, still sealed. His fingers traced the edge. He turned it over and saw the date written in pencil on the back. The 21st of April 2016, today. He sat down on the bed, opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded once. The handwriting was Prince's neat, deliberate, unmistakable. It read, "When you read this, I'll be gone. Don't be sad. I did everything I came to do. Paisley Park is not a studio anymore. It is a home. Open it. Let them in. Let them see where the music was born. Let them feel what I felt. This isn't the end. It is the echo." At the bottom, a single line. The ending is just the beginning. The manager sat there for a long time, holding the letter, reading it over and over. His throat burned, his eyes blurred. Prince hadn't left instructions for a funeral. He'd left instructions for a resurrection. By evening, Paisley Park was surrounded. Hundreds of people gathered outside the gates, holding candles, playing his music from car stereos, crying in the arms of strangers. Purple balloons floated into the sky. Someone painted a dove on the sidewalk. A woman in a purple dress stood alone, singing a cappella, her voice cracking on every line. In Atlanta, the Fox Theater was silent. The Steinway piano still sat at center stage, untouched since that night. The crew had covered it with a purple cloth. In Minneapolis, the Electric Fetus record store became a shrine. The owner placed the purple CD Prince had given him in a glass case. He still hadn't told anyone what was on it. He wasn't sure he ever would. In New York, London, Tokyo, Paris, the tributes poured in. Musicians, actors, fans, strangers who'd never met him but felt like they had. Everyone had a story. Everyone had a song. But the people in Atlanta, the 2,000 who'd been there on the 14th of April, they carried something heavier. They'd heard the goodbye in real time and didn't know it. They'd been warned, and they hadn't understood. Now, replaying that night in their heads, they could hear it clearly. Wait a few days before you waste your prayers. He hadn't been cryptic, he'd been direct. They just weren't ready to listen. 3 days after Prince's death, the owner of Electric Fetus finally played the CD. He locked the front door, turned off the lights, Saturday behind the counter with a pair of headphones and pressed play. The first sound was silence, 10 seconds of it. Then, piano, a melody that rose and fell like breathing. Then Prince's voice, soft and close, like he was sitting right next to him. The song had no name, no structure, just notes and words, fragments about time, memory, leaving, staying, love. That doesn't end when the body does. At the 2-minute mark, the music stopped. There was a pause. Then Prince spoke directly into the microphone. If you are hearing this, I am already gone. But don't cry for me. I am free now. I did what I came to do. The music doesn't die. It just changes shape. You'll hear me in every note you've ever loved. I am still here. Just quieter. Then the music came back. One last chord, fading. Gone. The owner sat in the dark, tears streaming down his face, the headphones still on. He played it again and again, and each time it felt like Prince was right there, not as a memory, but as a presence. He never released the tape, never told the media. It wasn't for them. It wasn't for him, a private goodbye from a man who'd spent his whole life performing for everyone else. Sometimes the most powerful music is the kind no one else gets to hear. The 6th of October 2016, 6 months after his death, Paisley Park opened to the public as a museum. Thousands came. They walked through the studios where he'd created magic. They stood in front of the white piano. They saw his clothes, his guitars, his handwritten notes. But the most powerful moment wasn't in any of the exhibits. It was in Studio A, where a single plaque hung on the wall. It read, "He didn't leave, he just changed rooms." A woman stood in front of it, her hand over her mouth, tears falling. Her daughter, barely 10 years old, tugged on her sleeve. "Why are you crying, Mom?" The woman knelt down, looked her daughter in the eyes, and said, "Because he is still here. You just have to listen." The girl didn't understand yet, but one day she would. One day she'd hear a song on the radio, or at a party, or on a quiet night, and she'd feel it. That presence, that echo, that is how legends work. They don't fade. They just learn to speak in a different language. A year later, the 14th of April, 2017, the Fox Theater in Atlanta held a tribute concert. The stage was empty except for the piano. The same Steinway, the same spotlight, the same purple glow. 2,000 people filled the seats. Some of them the same faces who'd been there that night. They came to remember, to honor, to finally understand what they'd witnessed. At exactly 9 p.m., the lights dimmed. A recording played, Prince's voice from that final concert, isolated, clear, unmistakable. Wait a few days before you waste your prayers. The room went silent. Not the kind of silence that waits for applause, the kind that holds its breath and doesn't let go. Then, one by one, people began to light candles, small flames flickering in the dark, spreading row by row until the entire theater glowed. No one performed. No one sang. They just sat there in the silence Prince had left behind and let it speak for itself. Because some goodbyes aren't meant to be loud. Some goodbyes are meant to echo forever. Today, Paisley Park is still open. The music still plays. The purple still glows. People visit from all over the world, not to mourn but to celebrate, to remember, to feel what he felt when he sat at that piano and let the music pour out of him like prayer. The 5 words he spoke in Atlanta are etched into a memorial plaque at the entrance. Wait a few days before you waste your prayers. Underneath a single line he knew, and he told us we just had to learn how to listen. Prince didn't predict his death. He simply understood something most people spend their whole lives avoiding, that endings are just beginnings in disguise. That silence is just music waiting to be born. That leaving doesn't mean disappearing. It just means changing shape. He walked off stage on the 14th of April, 2016, knowing it was the last time. He said goodbye in 5 words, and the world didn't hear it until it was too late. But maybe that was the point. Maybe he didn't want them to stop him. Maybe he just wanted them to remember, and they did. They do. They always will. A true legend doesn't fade. They echo. If this story moved you, share it. Because music ends, but its memory never dies. The white grand piano still sits in Studio A at Paisley Park. Visitors are allowed to look, but not touch. But late at night, when the museum is closed and the lights are off, security guards say they sometimes hear it, a single chord, soft and distant, like someone playing in another room. They check the cameras. Nothing. They walk the halls. Empty, but the sound is there. Faint, haunting, real. Maybe it is the building settling. Maybe it is the wind. Maybe it is something else. Or maybe Prince is still there, in the only place he ever felt free. Sitting at the piano, playing for no one and everyone. Reminding the world that some music never stops. It just learns to play quiet.